Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the secret underworld of the 1950s American home. Not the world of Tupperware parties or those weirdly aggressive Jell-O salads, but the shadowy, sock drawer stuffed world of housewives hustling for their own cash. Yes, before Venmo, before Etsy, before anyone said side hustle without cringing, there were women quietly earning secret money under the noses of husbands, who thought the checkbook was a dangerous new technology. So before you get comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from, and if you're multitasking, folding laundry, scrolling Zillow, or hiding from your own children in the bathroom, tell me how well you do earning money without anyone finding out. Because it turns out this was the original stealth mode. Now, dim those lights, switch on a fan for that soft 1950s white noise, get cozy, and maybe lock the door so your secrets stay secret. Let's pause. Have you ever wondered what housewives were actually up to all day? What did they do when lunch with the girls was code for I sell Avon door to door? Did anyone actually make money crocheting toilet roll covers, or was it just another form of competitive suffering? How did women hide a second income in a world where allowance was something you got from a man who owned exactly 3 ties? Could you balance PTA drama, Jell-O molds, and a clandestine chicken egg empire without your neighbours ratting you out? Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1954. You're standing in your turquoise kitchen, wearing an apron with more ruffles than dignity, and the only thing more suffocating than your girdle is the family budget. Good luck. It starts with a cluck and a wink. You, the picture of suburban respectability, are quietly running a bootleg poultry operation from the backyard. Chickens hidden behind rose bushes, eggs exchanged over the fence like contraband. The neighbours pretend not to see, but everyone's got an egg guy, and it's you. Let's set the scene. You're up before dawn, tiptoeing past your snoring husband, armed with a dented metal pail and nerves of steel. The backyard is silent except for the low, suspicious murmurs of 7 hens who definitely didn't get HOA approval. There's a whiff of adventure in the crisp morning air, or maybe that's just the chicken manure. Either way, you're breathing it in, clutching your bathrobe a little tighter, and hoping Mrs. Granger next door hasn't started peering through the blinds yet. You move quick, gathering eggs with the skill of a jewel thief. Each one is a tiny off-white ticket to freedom, or at least to a secret stash of mad money. You tuck the eggs in your apron, stashing them under a loaf of bread in the bread box, or if things are tense at home, inside a cereal box labelled Wheaties that's been suspiciously heavy for weeks. The code is simple. Eggs in the Wheaties, cash in the coffee tin, plausible deniability everywhere else. By 8 a.m, you're orchestrating the first of many covert transactions. A knock at the back gate, a neighbour with an empty pie tin, and a few words exchanged that sound perfectly normal unless you listen closely. Got anything fresh? She asks, glancing nervously at the driveway. Only a dozen, you reply, slipping her a brown paper bag as if it contains state secrets. She slips you $1, you slip her a knowing nod, and the whole exchange is over in seconds. Not even the mailman suspects a thing. Business booms. Word spreads faster than dandelions on a summer lawn. Soon you're fielding egg orders from every end of the cul-de-sac. Some customers are subtle. I'll take a dozen for Sunday baking if you have any extra. Others are downright reckless, passing notes at the PTA meeting and stuffing crumpled bills under your welcome mat. The fridge fills up with eggs. Your little black book is crammed with cryptic initials, and your chicken feed expenses are quietly filed under miscellaneous household items. It's suburban organised crime, but everyone leaves with better omelettes. Of course, not everything runs sunny side up. Chickens are unpredictable business partners. There's the rogue hen who refuses to lay unless serenaded, the one who hides her eggs in the neighbour's flower bed, and the occasional rooster who blows your cover by crowing at exactly the wrong moment. There are whispers at the block party about all that clucking coming from your backyard. Your husband grows suspicious when you suddenly know the price of chicken feed in 3 states. What's in the coffee can, he asks. You feign confusion, just savings for a rainy day, but you both know you're in too deep. Then one morning, disaster strikes. A neighbour's dog escapes and discovers your entire operation, scattering feathers and evidence across 3 yards and a picket fence. The HOA sends a strongly worded letter. The egg business collapses overnight, eggs go missing, customers disappear, and you're left with a kitchen full of unsold inventory and a newfound appreciation for plausible deniability. But here's the thing, you don't regret a second of it. For a while, you ran your own micro-empire, outsmarted the nosiest neighbours, and tasted financial freedom 1 egg at a time. You learned the power of a secret handshake, the thrill of a double yolk, and the unspoken alliance of women who just wanted a little something for themselves. And the next time you make breakfast, cracking open a perfect brown egg, you can't help but smile. Sure, the secret egg business had its rise and fall, but for a brief beautiful moment you ruled the roost. The front door closes and your persona transforms. Lipstick samples in your purse, your most persuasive smile ready. Selling Avon is half hustle, half improv theatre, especially when you're pitching wrinkle cream to someone who's still wearing curlers at 2 p.m. Your living room is a war room, with pastel brochures spread out like a general's maps. Your kitchen table holds a strategic stockpile of sample tubes, miniature perfumes, and order slips. You glance at your reflection in the toaster, applying just enough Persian melon lipstick to look approachable, but not so much that you seem like you're auditioning for a Broadway revival. Every detail matters. You slip on a pair of sensible shoes, the kind that can handle 8 front steps and the occasional defensive poodle, and tuck a smile behind your Avon calling routine. You step outside, but you don't walk, you glide. Your footsteps are light, your knock just brisk enough to wake a dozing house cat. The door opens. You scan the situation like a detective. Is this a demonstrate the new mascara house, or a quick handoff and run situation? Sometimes you're greeted by a customer still in her bathrobe, flanked by 2 toddlers and a whiff of burned toast. Sometimes it's a lady who's clearly been waiting, hair teased to improbable heights, with an exact budget and a mental list of grievances about last month's hand cream. You adjust instantly, morphing into whatever character the script calls for, cheerful confidant, beauty expert, or, on the rarest occasions, a silent therapist who listens while someone vents about their in-laws. You open your case. Inside, it's a carnival of hope. Bright pink lipsticks, tiny sachets of charisma cologne, jars of cold cream promising to erase the years with one gentle swipe. You practice your pitch, but the real art is reading the room. Today, it's wrinkle cream and bath oil beads, both just in case. You offer a free sample, explain the magic of the Avon glow, and wait for the inevitable. Does it really work? Your answer is as smooth as the cold cream. You wouldn't believe how many women swear by it. You pause, lower your voice, and add, "Between you and me, I use it every night." Sometimes that's all it takes. There's a rhythm to these encounters, part friendship, part performance, and just a pinch of subterfuge. You keep a little notebook coded with initials and cryptic reminders. Mrs. H wants a coral lipstick, but only if it doesn't stain teacups. Mrs. W has a weakness for bubble bath, but don't mention her husband's golf tournament. The world of door-to-door sales is equal parts memory game and emotional labour, all while never letting on that you're quietly building a nest egg in the back of your underwear drawer. Your favourite clients don't just buy, they confide. There are long talks at kitchen tables, coffee poured strong, and the gentle creak of secrets being shared. You hear about the neighbour's new car, the kids who never write, the dreams that never quite fit inside a house with yellow linoleum floors. The products are nice, but what you're really selling is hope. The hope of looking just a little brighter, a little younger, a little more like the woman in the glossy catalogue, even if just for a moment. Of course, there's risk. You can't let the husbands know just how much these little luxuries are costing. You can't be too successful. There are rumours that the woman on Elm Street made so much selling cologne she started paying the milkman in cash, and now the entire block is suspicious. You keep your receipts tucked inside a recipe book, hide your samples in a cake tin, and develop a sixth sense for the sound of a garage door opening unexpectedly. There are triumphs and heartbreaks. The customer who orders 6 bottles and forgets to pay, the rival seller who poaches your best territory, The moment you realise you've talked for 30 minutes about eyeliner and never made the sale. But there's also pride. You're earning your own money, one tiny tube at a time, outwitting the odds, and proving that even in a world of allowances and budgets, you can carve out a secret kingdom, one doorstep at a time. As you walk home, purse a little heavier, you're tired but satisfied. Avon calling may be an art of doorstep deception, but for you it's also the quiet, daily rebellion of a woman who refuses to stay in her place. It's not a party. It's a clandestine economic summit with cake. You master the delicate ballet of plastic burping bowls and neighbourhood gossip. The secret isn't the product, it's how you hide the cash box in the flour canister when your husband wanders in. Let's set the scene. It's Thursday night and you're orchestrating a covert operation in your living room. On the surface, it looks like an innocent gathering of ladies in pearls nibbling bundt cake. But you know better. You're running a full-fledged Tupperware ring with the efficiency of a black market currency exchange and the discretion of a Cold War spy. There's not a casserole dish in sight that doesn't carry a whiff of financial liberation. You greet your guests with a practiced smile and a tray of Jell-O cubes, mentally tallying who's most likely to buy a picture just for the party gift. Every woman here has her role. The chatty Cathy who'll ask about the burping seal, the shy Shirley who just wants to watch but leaves with a set of pastel tumblers, the reluctant Rita who will, after exactly 2 glasses of punch, ask if the deviled egg tray comes in avocado green. The script changes, but the hustle never stops. You launch into your demonstration, equal parts Broadway show and low-level sales seminar. Watch as I snap this lid. Hear that burp? That's freshness, ladies. The room oohs and ahs in perfect synchrony, as if you've just performed a magic trick. Someone mentions last week's potato salad surviving for days. Another swears her leftovers haven't tasted a fridge since 1952. This is not just storage, it's salvation from the tyranny of dry sandwiches and wilted celery. You sell the dream, not the plastic. But beneath the surface, it's all subterfuge. Every order form passed around the coffee table is a coded message. When someone says, "I'll take a set in Harvest Gold," what she really means is, "I have $5 in the lining of my purse, and my husband thinks I'm here to talk about church bake sales." The money moves discreetly. Folded bills slipped between catalogue pages, coins dropped into an old teacup, and the legendary cash box nestled deep in the flour canister, where nobody, not even the dog, dares to look. The system runs with the kind of trust usually reserved for smuggling diamonds. Of course, you're not just moving merchandise, you're managing a web of secrets and alliances. You know who's saving for a new vacuum, who's hiding cash from her bookie brother-in-law, and who's hoping to fund a desperate escape from a wallpapering disaster. The Tupperware ring is less about leftovers and more about solidarity, a quiet rebellion against the limits of grocery money and the ever-watchful eyes of men who don't know the price of Pyrex. Sometimes there's real danger. A curious husband lingers in the kitchen. You deploy a diversion, darling. Could you check the pilot light and sweep the cash box into the flour before he sees a dime? There's the occasional close call, like when Mrs. Hanley's toddler tips over the canister and nearly exposes the entire operation. Crisis averted, but you add a second decoy cash stash to the sugar jar just to be safe. The party always ends the same way. The laughter fades, the ladies collect their party favours, and you count your earnings under the warm glow of the stove light. The house smells like coffee and cake, and you can almost taste the freedom mixed in with the flour dust. You're not just a hostess, you're a ringleader, a financial wizard, and the unsung hero of cold cuts everywhere. So next time you snap a Tupperware lid or open your pantry to find a stash of envelopes behind the biscuit, remember, it wasn't just about the burp. It was about women finding power in the smallest, quietest corners, and about never, ever underestimating the economic potential of an airtight seal. Technically, you're watching the neighbour's kids. In reality, you're managing 4 toddlers, a teething puppy, and a casserole in the oven, all while discreetly pocketing crumpled dollar bills. Welcome to the real post-war childcare economy. It starts with a phone call. Could you watch Tommy for an hour while I run to the store? The answer is always yes, not just because you're neighbourly, but because you know what an hour really means. By the time the doorbell rings, Tommy has multiplied into a small mob, each child clutching a lunchbox and a list of parental instructions that would terrify a NASA engineer. The puppy arrives too, wagging his tail and looking for the only adult in the zip code who isn't afraid of a little drool. You do a quick head count, glance at the ticking kitchen clock and roll up your sleeves. This isn't babysitting, it's crowd control, logistics and culinary triage rolled into one. There are noses to wipe, shoes to locate, and a mysterious stick of gum pried off the bottom of someone's sock. The casserole timer dings, and you make a mental note to add professional juggler to your resume. There's an art to this chaos. One eye on the children, one hand stirring the sauce, one foot nudging the puppy away from disaster. The house is alive with sound, laughter, shrieks, and the occasional wail that could be joy or imminent mutiny. The kids tumble through rooms, inventing elaborate games that turn couch cushions into pirate ships and the piano bench into a fortress. You referee battles over who gets the last cookie, wielding the ultimate weapon, a secret stash of marshmallows. The puppy chews on a sock, and you offer him a wooden spoon in the hope that he'll forget about gnawing on little Timmy's sneaker. But while it looks like mayhem, there's a strange rhythm to the day. Lunch is a synchronized ballet of grilled cheese, carrot sticks, and last-minute negotiations over whether ketchup counts as a vegetable. You become a master negotiator, arbitrating toy disputes with the steely patience of a Cold War diplomat. Nap time is both a blessing and a gamble. You read stories until your voice is hoarse, then tiptoe around, praying the silence lasts long enough for you to scrub the crayon masterpiece off the hallway wall before anyone wakes up. There's a secret economy at work too. The dollar bills you earn aren't crisp and new. They're soft, crumpled, and often accompanied by a whispered, "Don't tell my husband how much I gave you." Payments are hidden in Tupperware, slipped under doormats, or tucked inside envelopes marked grocery money. You keep your own little ledger, coded with notes about who pays on time and who makes up for it with a tin of fudge. Sometimes you swap babysitting shifts, trading a Tuesday morning for a Friday night, quietly building alliances that keep the whole system spinning. There's a sense of camaraderie among the neighbourhood women, each one juggling her own version of chaos, each one grateful for the chance to slip out for an hour, maybe two, of solo time in the grocery store, pretending it's a tropical vacation. Of course, the husbands don't quite get it. "Didn't you just watch their kids last week?" they ask, blissfully unaware that this is less about babysitting and more about survival. You just smile, pocket your earnings, and plot your next escape to the beauty parlour, knowing that a couple of hours wrangling toddlers is a small price to pay for a little financial freedom, and maybe a quiet coffee in the car. By the end of the day, you've wiped faces, dried tears, rescued stuffed animals, and kept the casserole from burning. You count your hard-earned dollars and feel a small surge of pride. You're not just watching the neighbours' kids. You're a linchpin in a network of quiet, determined women holding the neighbourhood together. One marshmallow, one whispered payment, and one exhausted, grateful smile at a time. There's a secret handshake among women who know their way around a mangle. You take in shirts, sheets, and the occasional mystery stain, pressing everything flat and flawless, then stashing your hard-earned change inside the pocket of your least hideous housecoat. Your day starts early, well before the world wakes up. The scent of starch floats through the kitchen, blending with last night's coffee and the dull ache in your shoulders. The mangle waits in the corner, a hulking beast of iron and wood, its rollers gleaming with the promise of pressed perfection, or occasionally a mangled disaster. You tie your hair up with a handkerchief, button your work apron, and prepare to face the fabric battlefield. The first delivery arrives before breakfast, a brown paper bag containing a week's worth of shirts, each collar a unique case study in stubbornness. There are sheets too, and napkins from the Johnsons down the street, all requesting extra crisp for Sunday dinner. Sometimes there's a cryptic note, "Please, if you can, get out the gravy from Tuesday," as if you wield secret stain-fighting magic unavailable to the average mortal. You don't question it. You just smile, nod, and set to work. Because every stain removed is another nickel earned. Ironing isn't just a chore, it's a science. The hiss of steam, the heavy glide of the iron, the way you flick the corners of a pillowcase just so, there's rhythm in the repetition. You measure your success not by praise, but by the way a shirt crackles when folded, or how a stack of linen stands tall on the edge of the table, threatening to topple but never daring to do so. You press pleats sharper than a tacksman's pencil, and turn wrinkled chaos into order with the patience of a saint and the stubbornness of a mule. There's always a soundtrack, a radio playing softly in the background, the slap and sizzle of damp fabric, the distant gossip of sparrows on the windowsill. The neighbourhood hums outside, but in here, you're a quiet operator, part of a network of women who understand the real economy runs on quarters and elbow grease. You trade ironing tips like spies exchange codes, a touch of vinegar for shine. Always press collars inside out. Never ever trust a mystery stain until you've interrogated it under the lamp. Your clients pay in small bills, coins, and sometimes fresh-baked bread. Every transaction is wrapped in discretion. Money gets folded into a handkerchief, slipped into your palm during church, or handed over in a brown paper bag that also contains last week's socks. You stash the change deep inside the pocket of your housecoat, the one so faded it's almost invisible, alongside old buttons, bobby pins, and your secret dreams of a little vacation just for you. Of course, there's peril. The mangle jams, a scorched shirt sleeve, the dreaded double booking, when Mrs. Lewis needs sheets pressed for her bridge club, and Mrs. Lee needs shirts for her husband's work trip, both by Friday. You learn to work fast, to think on your feet, to treat every drop of sweat as a down payment on freedom. Sometimes you swear the shirts multiply when you're not looking, and always, there's the conspiracy, the knowing look from another woman hauling a bundle down the alley. The unspoken agreement, we won't tell if you don't. The real power is in the network, a network of quiet, competent women exchanging favours, business, and the occasional recipe for lemon bars that double as fabric softener. By the end of the day, you've pressed 20 shirts, 6 sets of sheets, and a dozen napkins, each one folded into a promise of extra pennies in the pocket. You hang up your housecoat, the change clinking reassuringly. You didn't just press laundry, you pressed your own luck, one steamy, shining shirt at a time. And as the evening settles and you finally sit down with your own cup of tea, you allow yourself a small smile. In a world where money is tight and respect even tighter, you and your mangle are a quiet force, turning wrinkles into currency, one secret handshake at a time. Cakes, cookies, and mysterious jello salads slide quietly out your back door and into the hands of grateful neighbours. You claim it's just a hobby, but your battered recipe box is full of I owe us and a surprisingly sophisticated black market bundt cake system. It always starts the same way. A neighbour stops by just to chat and leaves 10 minutes later with a warm coffee cake, a wink, and the promise to return the dish next week. But you know how this works. The dish always comes back with a folded dollar tucked underneath, or sometimes a slip of paper with next Friday lemon bars, scribbled in urgent pencil. By the time the PTA rummage sale rolls around, you're not just a helpful baker, you're the local supplier, running a confectionery economy out of your own linoleum-tiled speakeasy. Your kitchen is the command centre. The radio hums softly as you measure sugar with one hand and take whispered phone orders with the other. You've memorised half the recipes in Better Homes and Gardens, but the real gold is in your own secret stash. The fudge that sets perfectly every time, the pound cake recipe with the suspicious amount of butter, the legendary pineapple upside-down cake that has never seen the light of a church potluck because that one's strictly for paying customers. The egg timer is your clock, and every ding is another dollar earned. You bake at odd hours, early morning, when the house is quiet, or late at night, when the rest of the family thinks you're just doing extra cleaning. Your kids wonder why there's always a surplus of flour, and why they never actually get to taste the chocolate cake. That one's for Mrs. Clark, you say, already writing her name on a note card. The neighbourhood's birthday parties, bake sales and baby showers all start to blur together because you're at the centre of them, sliding Tupperware containers across fences like coded messages. You've even developed a complex bartering system, 24 snickerdoodles for a book of S&H green stamps, 1 frosted sheet cake for a bottle of the good vanilla extract imported from Canada. There's a thrill in the secrecy. Sometimes the money is slipped into your apron pocket during church. Sometimes it's left in the mailbox under a decoy pile of Reader's Digests. You've become a master at making it look effortless. Oh, it's nothing, you say, dusting your hands on your apron, while secretly noting you've just cleared more in one afternoon than you would have in a week of ironing shirts. Of course, the risks are real. The oven timer is a merciless boss. Burn 1 batch of brownies, and you're fielding polite but disappointed phone calls all week. A nosy neighbour asks why you're buying so much powdered sugar. You shrug, flash a smile, and mention a new recipe from the magazine. Meanwhile, your husband grows suspicious when the grocery bill spikes, and you're forced to explain away your growing collection of bunt pans as just a phase. You stash your earnings in a coffee tin behind the beans, or, if you're feeling especially secure, in a zippered pouch tucked inside your sewing basket. But it's worth it. Each cake delivered is a quiet victory, a reminder that even in a world where a woman's spending money depends on her ability to budget the household allowance, you've created something sweet and entirely your own. The network of grateful neighbours keeps you afloat. The I owe us in your recipe box are badges of honour, and the clandestine transactions at your back door are little acts of rebellion. When you finally sit down at the end of the day, your hands smell like cinnamon and lemon zest. You listen to the distant sound of children playing, the satisfied hum of a refrigerator full of secret profits, and allow yourself to savour the sweetest truth of all. Sometimes the best cakes and the best victories are the ones nobody sees coming out the front door. Your hands move faster than a teenager caught sneaking in after curfew. Every Afghan and toilet paper cozy is a coded message. I may look domestic, but I'm in the business of fibre-based financial freedom. The living room is your workshop, your lair, your command centre. The coffee table overflows with skeins of pastel yarn, crochet hooks hidden in every couch cushion, and a half-finished ripple blanket draped artfully over the armchair to disguise the fact that you've been running a full-scale yarn operation since the Eisenhower administration. You're not just making doilies, you're making deals. Every loop, every stitch is part of a delicate game of supply and demand, neighbourhood whispers, and a secret order book thicker than last year's Sears catalogue. It starts innocently enough. Someone compliments the baby booties you crocheted for a shower, and suddenly you're fielding requests for hats, scarves, coasters, and, your best seller, those strangely popular toilet roll covers shaped like Victorian ladies. The word spreads at lightning speed. One afternoon, you find yourself cornered at the grocery store by 3 different PTA mums, all asking if you just happen to have an extra set of placemats. You smile serenely, making a mental note to buy more yarn in the next town over, lest you blow your own cover at the 5 and dime. Orders are discreet, payments even more so. Money arrives in crumpled bills tucked inside Christmas cards or slid across the table at church socials, always accompanied by a conspiratorial glance. Sometimes you're paid in trade, fresh rhubarb, a coupon for double trading stamps, or an IOU for next month's yard sale. The barter system is alive and well, and you're its queen, juggling requests and debts in a world where a perfectly sized granny square blanket can open doors that money never could. The deception runs deep. Your family thinks you'd just like to keep your hands busy, but they never notice how the stack of finished goods on your closet shelf rises and falls in sync with the neighbourhood supply of pocket money. Your husband asks why the linen closet smells like lavender and mothballs, never suspecting it's the temporary holding cell for 3 baby bonnets and a dozen lace doilies waiting for their new homes. You track your orders in a little notebook marked Household Budget, so anyone snooping just sees a list of grocery prices and laundry soap. The work is endless, but it's meditative. The repetitive motion of hook and yarn gives you time to plot your next move, how to manage demand, how to price that tricky pineapple motif table runner, and, most importantly, how to make sure the PTA president never discovers you undercut her on baby blanket pricing. You develop calluses, yes, but you also develop a sixth sense for which colour combos will sell fastest and which neighbour is most likely to pay extra for custom work. Sometimes your fingers ache, but the little thrill of sliding an envelope of cash into your handbag at the end of the week makes it all worthwhile. There are dangers, of course. Run out of mint green yarn and risk a riot at the next bridge club. Deliver the wrong colour Afghan, and you'll hear about it for months. There's the ever-present risk of being ratted out to the husband brigade, a group convinced that homemade crafts are merely hobbies, not micro-economies. You smile sweetly, hand over another set of potholders, and pocket your profit with the discretion of a master criminal. But in the end, it's not just about the money. It's about the independence, the camaraderie, and the quiet, rebellious pride of turning a women's pastime into a revenue stream, one row at a time. When the living room is quiet, the orders are filled, and your secret stash is safely hidden away, you look down at your hands and realise you haven't just crocheted a doily, you've crocheted yourself a little slice of freedom, right there between the popcorn stitches. And that's something no one can unravel. One perm rod at a time, you transform kitchens into salons. For $1 and the latest gossip, you turn your friends into bouffant-topped goddesses. Never mind the faint whiff of burnt hair or the towel-wrapped evidence in the hamper. It always starts with a phone call and a whisper. Do you have time for a quick trim? Or, more urgently, my sister-in-law is in town, and if I don't get these roots done, I'll never hear the end of it. You know the drill. The dining table is cleared of homework and casserole dishes and transformed into your workstation. Curlers, rat-tail combs, and that precious bottle of home perm solution take centre stage. You wrap a towel around your client's shoulders, pull out the plastic cap, and suddenly the house is alive with anticipation and the suspicious fizz of chemicals. The stakes are high. This isn't just about style, this is about neighbourhood status. A successful bouffant can earn you 3 new clients by Sunday. But one botched bang and you'll be dodging side-eyes at the grocery store for months. The kitchen smells like a mixture of Aquanet, burnt toast, and something that's either hope or terror. You've become an alchemist, mixing just enough solution to set curls without singeing, wielding bobby pins with the finesse of a concert violinist, and teasing hair so high it could intercept radio signals. Every appointment comes with its own side plot. There's the nervous mother praying you can hide her grey before parent-teacher night. The teenager hoping for a Marilyn but willing to settle for not tragic. The glamorous widow who wants her curls big enough to make my ex regret everything. You listen to confessions, whisper secrets, and nod at stories that would make a soap opera writer blush. The cost of entry is always $1, but the real currency is trust and a willingness to risk mild chemical burns for beauty. Discretion is key. Your husband knows to steer clear when the living room fills with the clatter of hair clips and giggling women. The kids are sent outside with popsicles and a stern warning. Don't come in unless you're bleeding. You're part stylist, part therapist, part covert operator. You keep your cash hidden in a biscuit tin marked buttons, the perfect disguise for any sudden spousal curiosity. There are hazards, of course. A miscalculated timer, a curling iron left on too long, or a distracted moment that leads to just a little more off the top than anyone planned. You've learned to improvise. A quick dash to the bathroom for cold water, a fast cover-up with a headscarf, and a reassuring, "Trust me, darling, it looks chic." You've become an expert at damage control, equal parts calm and chaos, with a reputation for miracles and occasional last-minute rescues. But with every rinse and roller set, your little empire grows. The women you serve go out into the world with their hair high and spirits higher, telling friends, "Oh, I just did it myself," while you both know better. Sometimes you receive tips in gossip or homemade bread. Sometimes just a grateful squeeze of the hand and the promise of another appointment before bridge club. The kitchen returns to normal. but for a few glorious hours you were the most powerful woman on the block, armed with a teasing comb and the nerve to tackle even the most stubborn cowlick. By the end of the day, the house still smells faintly of hairspray and ambition. You stash your day's earnings in the biscuit tin and smooth your own hair with a little pride. You've built something real here, a tiny, loyal clientele, a network of women who trust you with their secrets, their style, and sometimes their sanity. And as you sit at the kitchen table, sipping your well-earned cup of tea, you smile at the towel in the hamper and the faint perfume of setting lotion in the air. You're not just fixing hair, you're shaping confidence, one kitchen salon appointment at a time. You're selling pots and pans so durable you could bludgeon a burglar with them, demos double as cover for venting about in-laws, and the catalogue is a passport to a world where lifetime warranty means you might outlive your financial problems. The day begins with a trunk full of stainless steel ambition. You lug your sample set from the car, saucepan, skillet, a Dutch oven that weighs more than a first grader, past the suspicious stares of neighbours who suspect you're either a kitchenware queen or planning to fortify the basement for a siege. You ring the doorbell, catalogue in hand, and greet your hostess with a wink. Today, her living room is a showroom, and every seat on the couch is a potential convert to the gospel of the 3-ply bottom. Demos are never just about the cookware. Sure, you show off the non-stick miracle, the magical way scrambled eggs refuse to cling, the silent confidence with which you tap a pan on the countertop and announce, "Go ahead, drop it. This thing survived my cousin's 3rd wedding reception." But the real sales pitch happens in the swirl of conversation. Women swapping secrets about reheated leftovers, the best way to get spaghetti sauce out of a blouse, or exactly how many days you can serve the same meatloaf before someone stages a mutiny. Every demonstration is a performance. You whip up pancakes with a flourish, flipping them higher than propriety, or the ceiling should allow. A burnt offering here or there is spun into a story. Don't blame the pan, blame my mother-in-law's recipe. Laughter bubbles up, a bond forms, and suddenly you're not just hawking hardware, you're orchestrating group therapy. The pans clang in the background while tales of domestic struggle echo across the linoleum. But the real magic is in the fine print. Lifetime warranty you intone, as if you're reciting an ancient spell. The women nod, wide-eyed, dreaming of a future where at least one thing in the kitchen is guaranteed not to fall apart. Some joke that the pots might last longer than their marriages. You're not about to disagree. The guarantee isn't just for the pans, it's for the hope that something sturdy and dependable can be part of their everyday chaos. The money is good, better than babysitting, better than ironing, sometimes better than selling cakes, depending on who needs a new stock pot this week. Cash changes hands in envelopes slipped discreetly into the Stanley catalogue, or written as cheques with creative memo lines like home supplies or emergency repairs. Your own earnings are folded into the lining of your handbag or tucked into the zippered compartment of the sample case. Nobody looks there, not even the cat. There's danger, of course. Competition is fierce. There's always a rival demonstrator lurking a few blocks away, ready to poach your territory with the promise of free spatulas or double coupons. You learn to cultivate loyalty with handwritten thank you notes, recipes shared in strict confidence, and the occasional whispered secret about who's serving store-bought pie at the next church picnic. And beneath it all, there's the satisfaction of running your own game. You've memorised every page of the catalogue, every quirky fact about sauce distribution and riveted handles. You know who's saving for a set of skillets, and who just wants the mini-egg pan to feel fancy at breakfast. You measure success not just in sales, but in the little victories, outsmarting a sceptical husband, winning over the last holdout at the party, or hearing a customer say, "I don't know how I ever cooked without this." At the end of a long day, you load the pans back in the trunk, fingers tingling with pride and a hint of stainless steel polish. You've earned your freedom, one heavy skillet at a time, in a world where the only thing more reliable than a Stanley pan is your own determination. As you head home, catalogue on the passenger seat, You know the warranty on your hustle is as good as lifetime because you too are built to last. You say you're just feeding Mr. Whiskers, but it's actually a high-stakes operation involving goldfish, nervous poodles, and one traumatized parakeet, plus a steady stream of quarters quietly slipped into your grocery money. It all starts innocently enough. The Smiths are heading to Miami, and you're just popping in to check on the cat. You nod agreeably, hiding the fact that your schedule is already bursting with children, casseroles, and clandestine hair appointments. Pet sitting seems like easy money, until you realise that for every bored house cat, there's a high-strung cocker spaniel or an iguana with dietary requirements that would confuse a trained veterinarian. You quickly discover that pet sitting for the well-to-do is nothing like watching your own mutt chase squirrels in the backyard. These pets are pampered, scheduled, and neurotic. The kitchen counter is lined with colour-coded Tupperware, one container for each day of the week, contents ranging from organic lamb to lightly steamed peas, not from a can. You memorise the feeding instructions with the focus of an air traffic controller, clutching a note that reads, "Do not let Mr. Whiskers eat the parakeet's seed. If Goldie looks melancholy, play the xylophone record. You become a one-woman animal circus. At 8 a.m, you're untangling leashes from a herd of French poodles, each with its own monogrammed raincoat. By noon, you're wrestling a parakeet into its travel cage while it screams the theme to I Love Lucy. At dusk, you're standing in a tiled sunroom, whispering words of affirmation to a tank full of goldfish who stare back with a blank incomprehension of tiny floating landlords. The houses are quiet but haunted by the lingering scent of expensive dog shampoo and a faint sense of judgment from the family tortoise. It's not just pet care, it's reputation management. The Smiths have left you a phone number, but they also have neighbours with binoculars and strong opinions. There's an understanding. No parties, no snooping, and absolutely no evidence that the Lhasa Apso escaped and chased the mailman for half a block before you lured her back with a slice of leftover ham. The rich neighbours leave treats for you alongside the treats for their pets. Tiny envelopes of coins, grocery store gift cards, sometimes a wedge of imported cheese for your trouble. But for every tip, there's a moment of crisis. The poodle refuses to eat unless you play his favourite Bing Crosby record at a very specific volume. The goldfish floats upside down, then rights itself, sending you into a panic spiral until you remember the air bubble trick mentioned in the notes. One dog has anxiety so acute it requires hourly reassurance and exactly 3 pats on the head. No more, no less. You learn the difference between whining for affection and whining for the emergency vet, and keep the latter number posted on the fridge, just in case. Sometimes the job is a comedy of errors, like the time the cat shreds an entire roll of imported toilet paper and you have to re-roll it with trembling hands, praying no one notices. Other times, it's an exercise in espionage. You creep through the house in your stocking feet, dusting for evidence of pet misbehaviour and strategically rearranging chew toys to disguise the worst of the day's chaos. When the owners return, you hand over a checklist, accept a thank you card that rattles with quarters, and assure them that all is well. They smile, the poodle howls, and you pocket your pay, knowing you've once again survived the gauntlet of pet sitting in suburbia. Later, at home, you deposit your earnings into the grocery jar, feeling a quiet pride. It's not glamorous, and you're definitely covered in more fur than you started with, but you're running your own wild, furry side business, one that pays in cash, chaos, and the secret knowledge that, for a few days at least, you were the queen of the animal kingdom. By day, you hem church dresses. By night, you're altering hemlines for every woman in a 6-block radius. The sewing machine whirs like an old Ford, and the only thing sharper than your scissors is your ability to keep a secret. Your sewing nook is a world unto itself, a cramped corner of the house perfumed with lavender sachets, speckled with stray pins, and echoing with the steady thrum of your faithful singer. It's not fancy, but it's yours. A patchwork of bobbin boxes, fabric scraps, and half-drunk cups of cold tea that serve as both camouflage and comfort. Here, in the hush of late evening, you plot your small acts of rebellion against a world that thinks allowance is a dirty word. Every job starts with a quiet knock at the back door, a dress bundled under an arm, and a glance to see if anyone's watching. Sometimes it's Mrs. Jenkins fretting over the too-tight bodice of her choir robe, or Mrs. Davis with a pencil skirt scandalously short for someone on the PTA. They hand you a shopping bag or a box from the dime store, and you both pretend it's nothing more than a minor adjustment. You nod, measure, and say, "It'll be ready by Wednesday," all the while mentally tallying how many more alterations you can squeeze in before the family wonders why the living room smells like steam and sizing spray. The work is never-ending and oddly thrilling. Hems to be let out, waistbands taken in, buttons replaced, zippers coaxed back to life. You've mastered the subtle art of reworking the same dress for 3 seasons running, turning last year's Easter pastel into this year's new garden party ensemble. You can turn a frumpy frock into a showstopper with nothing but a few darts and a strategic swish of ribbon. Never mind that your fingers are permanently pricked and your eyes have learned to see straight lines even in your dreams. There's a social network at play too, operating on favours, gossip, and trust. Each client is a friend or a friend of a friend, and every whispered recommendation is worth more than a week's worth of coupons. Mrs. Ramirez may pay in homemade jam, Mrs. Lee in small bills folded inside a sewing pattern. Sometimes you get tips in beauty samples, a half-used lipstick, or a little gossip about whose husband was spotted loitering outside the hardware store instead of the office. And the secrets, they pile up with the fabric scraps. You know which neighbour wears padding, whose girdle is on its last leg, who's trying to squeeze into last summer's wedding dress for the 3rd time. You keep these confidences like a vault, never breathing a word, because in the world of dressmaking, discretion is more valuable than thread count. You've heard confessions whispered over the whir of the needle, promises extracted as you pin hems, hopes shared in the language of fabric swatches and sighs. Of course, you have to be careful. Your husband thinks you just enjoy sewing, unaware that you've turned a simple hobby into a side business robust enough to cover Christmas and then some. The family wonders why you're always muttering about fit at the dinner table, or why you keep buying extra spools of navy blue thread. You stash your earnings in the button tin, behind a false bottom, tucked in so tight that even the nosiest child wouldn't think to look there. But at night, when the house is finally quiet and your last customer's skirt is pressed and bagged, you take a breath and look at what you've built. Not just a rack of expertly mended dresses, but a life just a little more your own. Every stitch is a step toward independence. Every secret pocket a small act of courage. You're more than a dressmaker. You're the keeper of the neighbourhood's dreams, and the only person for miles who can make a hemline look like a revolution. You have a briefcase full of tiny glass bottles and a spiel that would make a car salesman blush. It's all whispers and winks, because no one needs to know that every whiff of evening in Paris is another dime toward your escape fund. The day starts with a ritual. You carefully tuck sample vials into your handbag, wrap your order book in a scarf, and check your reflection to make sure your smile is at maximum charm. Perfume sales require a certain mystique. Part chemist, part matchmaker, part gossip with a suitcase. Your kitchen table is lined with a rainbow of glass, little atomizers, tiny stoppered bottles, and labels so small you need your reading glasses to decipher whether you're pitching spring mist or seductive moonlight. You run your fingers over the inventory like a blackjack dealer prepping for a big night. Your route is well-worn but never predictable. You call on the women who appreciate life's little luxuries, the ones who can't splurge on a new dress but can still spring for a bottle of hope disguised as floral aldehydes. Every visit is a carefully rehearsed dance. You knock softly on the door, and it opens just wide enough to show a housecoat, a cloud of baby powder, and eyes scanning for husbands, children, or nosy neighbours. "I brought the new sample," you whisper, like you're handing over state secrets. Business is conducted with the utmost discretion. The catalogue stays out of sight. The cash, folded into tissue, is slipped across the kitchen table alongside a cup of sanka. You offer a spritz, wrist, neck, sometimes even a dab behind the knee for the bold ones, and watch as your client inhales, closes her eyes, and imagines herself somewhere fancier. The names on the bottles are promises: Garden of Dreams, First Kiss, Reckless Saturday. They're tiny portals to other worlds, all for a quarter or a dime at a time. It's not all glamour, of course. You've mastered the art of complimenting Mrs. Crabtree's penchant for musky scents and nodding approvingly at the PTA treasurer's fourth purchase of fresh lilac. You listen to stories about husbands who don't notice anything except the grocery bill, children who borrow mum's good perfume for experiments, and neighbours who suddenly seem to linger longer at the mailbox. Sometimes you field complaints. It doesn't last as long as the expensive kind, to which you reply, "That's why you need 2 bottles, dear. Your briefcase is more than a toolbox, it's a treasure chest." Sometimes a little glass vial cracks, leaking eau de cologne into your handbag, leaving you trailing an unmistakable cloud of lilac and citrus wherever you go. You make jokes about always smelling like the inside of a Woolworths cosmetics counter, but secretly you love it. It's the scent of independence, every bottle a tiny step towards something you can call your own. You learn quickly who pays cash, who needs to pay next week, and who trades in fresh eggs or homemade pie. Your little black ledger is coded with notes only you understand, prefers floral, gives good tips, keep away from gardenia, bad memories, ask about daughter's graduation. You're more than a saleswoman, you're a confidant, a therapist, a one-woman travelling mood lifter with a pocket full of hope. And the secrecy, that's the best part. Nobody brags about perfume money, but every dime goes into the rainy day jar behind the flour canister or the lining of an old coat. At the end of a long day, you empty your pockets, count your winnings, and line up your vials for tomorrow's run. You know you're not just selling fragrance, you're selling a little bit of escape, bottled and stoppered, for anyone who needs it. You drift off to sleep with your pillow faintly scented like moonlight romance, knowing that for a few precious moments, you've made the world a little softer, a little sweeter, and a lot more your own. A little glue, a lot of glitter, and a suspiciously steady stream of envelopes out the mailbox. You say it's a craft project. In reality, you're single-handedly fueling the region's supply of glitter and paying the electric bill. Your kitchen table is permanently coated in a fine, shimmering dust. There are paper scraps in the silverware drawer, and a rainbow of felt-tip pens jammed in a coffee mug that once belonged to a forgotten wedding registry. Every morning you sweep aside toast crumbs to make way for your true work, transforming humble cardstock into birthday wishes, thank you notes, and on rare, inspired occasions, a pop-up Christmas tree that could make Martha Stewart weep. It all started innocently. A neighbour admired your homemade get-well-soon card, the one with a hand-drawn bunny and a perfectly rhymed poem. Before you knew it, word spread faster than dandelions after the first spring mow. Orders began rolling in. "Can you make one for my sister-in-law's wedding? My son's teacher loves hummingbirds, I just need something special." You always said yes. After all, it was just a little extra glue and some creative folding. But soon you found yourself operating a full-blown greeting card syndicate. Envelopes stacked by the door, stamps bought in bulk. The local stationery store started greeting you by name and locking up the premium glitter behind the counter. Your family eyed the never-ending craft supply deliveries with a mixture of confusion and awe. "Who needs this much ribbon?" they'd whisper, eyeing the growing mountain of supplies with suspicion. "Don't you have enough buttons?" You'd just smile mysteriously, armed with a glue gun and plausible deniability. Your production process is both an art and a science. First, you sketch a design, maybe a dancing turkey for Thanksgiving, or an elegantly embossed rose for a June wedding. Next comes the layering. Coloured papers, delicate lace trims, and of course, liberal handfuls of glitter. The dog glitters, the cat glitters, the carpet glitters. You're beginning to think you might glitter forever. Still, every card is a tiny masterpiece, sent off to brighten someone's mailbox, and, incidentally, keep your lights on. Payments come in as quietly as the orders. A few dollars slipped in with a thank you note, a crisp $5 tucked into the return envelope, a secret handshake in the church parking lot. Sometimes you trade homemade cards for a casserole, a birthday card for fresh rhubarb, an anniversary set in exchange for a week's worth of babysitting. You keep the money hidden in the old Monopoly box nestled under free parking where nobody but you would ever look. But the real satisfaction isn't just in the money. It's in the knowing nods at the grocery store, the whispers at the PTA. I heard she does pop-ups now. The moment when someone in church opens a birthday card and gasps at the hand-cut tulips or the tiny sparkling star glued just so. You're building a reputation, one envelope at a time. You become the go-to for every last-minute holiday, every oops, I forgot your anniversary, every teacher in need of a thank you. You're the mysterious benefactor, the ghostwriter of joy and celebration in the neighbourhood. Of course, there are hazards. One spilled cup of coffee can ruin a week's worth of work. The post office starts to wonder about your suspiciously heavy greeting cards. And if anyone ever discovers the full scale of your operation, the craft closet packed tighter than the phone company's billing department, well, you'll just have to distract them with a glittery sorry for the mess card. As the sun sets, you wipe glue from your hands, count your earnings, and smile at the stacks of finished cards. You're not just making crafts, you're printing your own ticket to independence. And as for the glitter, well, some mysteries are better left unsolved. You're typing invoices in your bathrobe for someone else's business downtown. It's the 1950s version of working from home, if home office means the kitchen table and the cat sleeping on your carbon copy paper. The day begins with the comforting clatter of typewriter keys and the aroma of reheated coffee. Your desk is a corner of the kitchen table, already littered with salt shakers, grocery lists, and a week-old crossword puzzle. You smooth the oilcloth, nudge aside a bowl of oranges, and place your portable typewriter in prime position. Your uniform, pyjamas, slippers, and a bathrobe with mysterious ink stains that refuse to come out. In this world, pantyhose and pin curls are optional, productivity is not. You receive your assignments the old-fashioned way, a phone call, a manila envelope slipped through the door, or a cryptic message relayed by your neighbour's kid, who's been bribed with a handful of butterscotch candies. The boss downtown, Mr. Schmidt, the mysterious accountant, or Mrs. Patterson, the tireless office manager, trusts you with a stack of receipts, a pile of invoices, and a deadline. Tuesday if you can swing it. You nod, jot it on the back of an envelope, and assure them it'll be done. You've mastered the art of multitasking. While the rest of the family believes you're writing letters to Aunt Mabel, you're hammering out itemised statements, balance sheets, and payroll records. You type with one hand, stir soup with the other, and occasionally shoo the cat off your only copy of last month's expense report. Carbon paper is your nemesis, always smudging, always sticking, always in short supply just when you need it most. You've learned to be creative with corrections. A little whiteout here, a strategic smudge there, and nobody's the wiser. Discretion is key. You don't talk about your work at Bridge Club, and you never mention whose invoices you're typing. You file the extra cash in a battered tin marked biscuits, tucked behind the flour. When someone asks about the constant racket of typewriter keys, you shrug and mutter something about household correspondence. You keep your secrets as carefully as you keep your receipts, filed, folded, and hidden in plain sight. The job isn't glamorous, but it's liberating. Each completed invoice is a tiny act of independence. Every finished report a gentle rebellion against the boundaries of women's work. You savour the satisfaction of mailing a neatly typed package downtown and knowing that, for a brief moment, you're a vital cog in someone else's business machine. You picture the boss opening your envelope, nodding in approval, and never suspecting that his secretary did it all in fuzzy slippers and with a toddler banging pots in the background. There are hazards, naturally. The typewriter ribbon runs dry at the worst moment, and you're forced to improvise with last year's leftovers. The telephone rings just as you're calculating columns, and your train of thought derails entirely. Your spouse, blissfully ignorant, wonders why you spend so much time writing letters and why there are always mysterious brown envelopes arriving in the mail. You just smile, pour another cup of coffee, and get back to work, knowing that what you're really typing is your own story of quiet rebellion. By evening, you've produced a small mountain of paperwork, your wrists ache, and your lap is full of cat hair. You pack away the typewriter, fold your bathrobe over the chair, and stash your earnings in the biscuit tin. You're not just keeping the books, you're keeping the faith that, even in a world built for men in suits, a woman in slippers can carve out her own domain. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. One invoice, one carbon copy, one secretly powerful keystroke at a time. Your neighbour asks for your legendary lemon bars. You smile politely, but the real recipe is locked in a safe because you're charging 50 cents a pop to share it with anyone desperate enough to pay. It's the kind of racket no one talks about at the church picnic, but everyone knows exists. Recipes are currency, and you're the neighbourhood's unofficial mint. The rumour started at last spring's bake sale, where Mrs. Carlson tasted your chocolate sheet cake and cornered you in the coat closet, offering up her famous coleslaw formula in exchange for your secret. You shook your head, smiling sweetly, and replied, "That's a family recipe." In truth, the family part is negotiable. The recipe is strictly business. By summer, word is out. You have the good stuff and you're not giving it away. The exchange rate is set, 50 cents for a guaranteed blue ribbon at the next bake-off, $1 for anything involving 7 layers or a hint of almond extract. Cash slides across porch railings, sometimes tucked into the pocket of a returned casserole dish, sometimes wrapped inside a napkin after bridge club. You keep a ledger in your sewing kit, disguised as embroidery patterns naturally, listing who's bought which recipes and who's still in arrears. You're not just a home cook, you're a culinary loan shark. The system is a marvel of secrecy and subtlety. Handwritten recipe cards are exchanged like state secrets, cursive so precise it borders on code, ingredients listed with sly little hints, pinch of patience, 2 shakes of optimism, butter, not margarine, trust me. Sometimes you watermark the card with a barely visible doodle, a lemon, a whisk, a sly little smiley face, so you'll always know if someone's reselling your work at a premium. Recipe requests come in hushed tones at the playground, encoded phone calls. Do you remember how you did that rhubarb thing? And via cryptic notes folded into the church bulletin. And don't even get started on the recipe mafia, the handful of other kitchen geniuses in town who run similar operations. You all pretend not to notice each other's side hustles, but the competition is real. A suspiciously familiar molasses cookie turns up at the county fair, and you raise an eyebrow at Mrs. Jensen, who suddenly has a new purse and a lot of people complimenting her original peanut brittle. There are alliances and rivalries, all played out in the form of clandestine carrot cakes and hush-hush hollandaise. The risks, they're not insignificant. You have to watch out for the recipe moochers, those who swear they'll never tell a soul, and then read your secret out loud at a dinner party. The neighbourhood gossips keep track of who's suddenly serving up your lemon bars, and your own husband starts to ask awkward questions about why the grocery money stretches a little further when you bake on Fridays. You play it cool, mention a sale at the market, and slip another 50-cent piece into your hidden envelope. But oh, the power! The satisfaction of seeing your creation win the blue ribbon, knowing the real winner is the secret. Handwritten, 50-cent masterpiece still hidden in your kitchen drawer. You're not just feeding the block, you're shaping it, one clandestine recipe card at a time, and at the end of the day, when the last cake is frosted and the last payment has been tucked away, you treat yourself to a little extra slice of your own success. After all, you earned it, not just with sugar and flour, but with a pinch of mystery and a dash of perfectly measured enterprise. In the world of secret recipe swapping, you're not just a cook. You're the gatekeeper of flavour, the queen of coded instructions, and the best paid baker on the block, 50 cents at a time. Tomatoes, zucchini, and a little under-the-table produce stand run entirely out of your garage. You keep the best carrots for yourself and the cash in an empty mayonnaise jar behind the flour. Victory gardens might have been born in wartime, but you've turned yours into a year-round, small-scale, strictly off-the-books agricultural empire. Every spring, you emerge in a sun hat that's seen better days, and a pair of gloves that have definitely seen better dirt. You march out to the backyard like a general preparing for battle, armed with seed packets, a rusty trowel, and the kind of determination only a tight household budget can produce. Your neighbours call it a hobby. You call it inventory management. It all starts innocently enough, just a few rows of peas and a patch of lettuce for salad nights. But you're not in it for the roughage. Within weeks, your modest plot explodes into a tangle of vines, squash blossoms, and tomato plants that seem to grow 6 inches every time you turn your back. You've memorised the exact angle of sunlight on the zucchini bed. You can spot an aphid invasion at 50 paces, and you know precisely when to pick a cucumber so it's not mistaken for a club. Soon, you're harvesting more than your family can possibly eat, and that's when the real business begins. The produce stand is a folding table tucked just inside the garage, out of sight from any HOA busybodies or particularly nosy passers-by. A cardboard sign, hand-lettered of course, advertises fresh veggies, honesty box. But the real transactions are done on the sly. A bag of snap peas slipped into Mrs. Keller's bike basket, a basket of tomatoes traded for a clutch of backyard eggs, a bundle of Swiss chard handed over to the butcher's wife for a discount on Sunday's roast. You keep the best produce for yourself. No sense in selling the perfect carrot when you could slice it into your own stew. The rest gets divided up, packed into paper sacks or mason jars, and distributed across the neighbourhood. The cash is tucked away in an old mayonnaise jar, the label long gone, but the contents all yours. It sits quietly behind the flour, far from curious hands and even further from family members who might mistake your profits for petty cash. There's a social element too. Every delivery comes with a dose of neighbourhood gossip. Who's planting what? Whose dog keeps digging up the beans? Which child was caught sampling a strawberry or two? It's a barter system wrapped in a blanket of plausible deniability. Nobody asks how you grew tomatoes so early in the season, or why your lettuce always looks greener than the other side of the fence. You smile, mutter something about a secret compost recipe, and change the subject before anyone gets ideas about starting their own rival plot. There are hazards, of course, tomato blight, squash bugs, and the occasional raccoon heist. The weather is never quite on your side, and every rainstorm brings the risk of a soggy harvest. You've learned to hedge your bets. Extra mulch, a tarp stashed nearby, a few quick prayers to St. Fiacre, patron saint of gardeners, and when all else fails, you remind yourself that even a wilted zucchini can be passed off as rustic if you say it with enough confidence. But at the end of the season, when your shelves are lined with jars of pickles and the last bushel of carrots has been counted and sold, you count your coins and smile. You've built something more than a garden. You've created a little slice of independence right there among the tomato vines and the muddy boots. In a world where so much is out of your control, you've found your own quiet victory. 1 carrot, 1 cash jar, and 1 perfectly plump tomato at a time. The sweet, sticky scent of strawberry jam wafts from your kitchen. Every mason jar is $1 earned. And the pickles? They're so popular you're pretty sure you could trade them for a used car. Your canning operation starts with a kitchen counter stacked high with fruit baskets, and produce that seems to multiply when you're not looking. There are strawberries in the sink, cucumbers on the windowsill, and a mysterious pile of rhubarb that materialized after a neighbourly swap behind the church. You move like a general marshalling troops, armed with a stained apron, a battered copy of the Ball Blue Book, and a steely resolve that would make Rosie the Riveter proud. You wake before dawn to beat the heat and the suspicion of any curious family members who might wonder why the sugar jar keeps getting refilled. The rhythm is soothing. Wash, chop, simmer, stir, sterilize, pour, and, if the universe is kind, listen for that deeply satisfying pop of the jar lid sealing shut. That little ping is your personal victory song, the soundtrack of small-scale economic freedom. It's not just about the jam, though your strawberry preserves have achieved near-legendary status at the PTA bake sale. The real money is in variety. Glistening jars of peach chutney, spicy green tomato relish, pickled beans so crisp they could shatter a tooth. Your pantry is a rainbow of future profits, every jar tagged with a handwritten label and a tiny flourish of pride. You save the fanciest ones for special customers. The doctor's wife, the mayor's cousin, the mysterious lady with the enormous hat who always pays in quarters. Sales are a covert affair. The produce table in the garage has a new row of jam jars each week, but the real transactions happen quietly. An envelope slipped under your mat, a whispered request at choir practice, a note pinned to your door, 2 pints strawberry, 1 bread and butter. Shh. You learn to keep a straight face when your husband wonders why the neighbours have suddenly developed a taste for that weird green relish. You simply nod, hand him a biscuit, and mentally calculate how many more jars you need to sell to reach your rainy day goal. The pickle economy is its own wild ride. Your dill spears have inspired bidding wars at the church picnic, and you're convinced at least one carpool arrangement has changed hands over a pint of bread and butter chips. People trade secrets, but nobody trades recipes, not when the stakes are this high. Your method is locked down tighter than Fort Knox, with the brine recipe scribbled in code on a scrap of paper, buried in your recipe box under 3 generations worth of oatmeal cookies. There are hazards, of course: boiling water, molten sugar, and the ever-present terror of a failed seal. You've had sleepless nights worrying if your batch of raspberry jam will set, or if that one stubborn lid is actually going to stay shut until the church bazaar. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, a jar bursts or a batch clouds up, and you stand there sticky and discouraged, calculating your losses and plotting a comeback. But you always bounce back, because you have to, and because tomorrow's cucumbers wait for no one. But oh, the payoff! You line up your jars on the shelf, watch the coins accumulate in your secret stash, a mason jar inside the flour canister naturally, and take a moment to breathe in the scent of simmering fruit and spices. In a world where household allowance still reigns supreme, you found your own sweet freedom, 1 lid, 1 label, and 1 tart pickle at a time, so the next time someone compliments your preserves, you just smile and say, family recipe. They don't need to know that behind the sweetness is a quiet, sticky revolution, and a woman who can put a price on independence, down to the very last jar. You're not just saving money, you're making it, thanks to a black market in doubled-up coupons, trade-ins, and the sacred art of mail-in rebates. Your coupon binder is thicker than your marriage certificate. The day begins with a symphony of snipping. The kitchen table is buried beneath piles of glossy circulars and the weekly newspaper, its pages sacrificed for the greater good of your family budget. You wield scissors with the precision of a heart surgeon, dissecting offers for 10 cents off tuna, buy one get one Jell-O, and those coveted double coupons for anything labelled new and improved. A mug of lukewarm coffee sits forgotten at your elbow. Caffeine is no match for the thrill of the hunt. You organise your spoils in a binder that rivals the Manhattan phone book, complete with colour-coded tabs and handwritten notes in the margins. Combine with sale, use after 3 p.m, ruthless cashier, avoid. Your system is a work of art, a testament to years of practice and the quiet determination of a woman who refuses to pay full price for canned soup. You've developed a 6th sense for expiration dates, rain checks, and which stores will actually let you stack manufacturers' coupons with the Sunday insert. But you're not just clipping for yourself. Oh no, this is an underground economy. Neighbours come to you for advice, trading laundry soap coupons for baby food, or a stack of cereal offers for the Holy Grail, 25 cents off name-brand peanut butter. You keep a separate pouch in your purse stuffed with duplicates and trade-only coupons, and sometimes, if the need is desperate, you'll swap a rare coffee voucher for a home-baked pie. There's an unspoken network of suburban couponers, mothers, grandmothers, and the occasional rogue uncle who meet in hushed tones at the end of the checkout lane, swapping deals like baseball cards. You've been known to orchestrate entire grocery runs for friends, mapping out store aisles in advance and plotting the optimal order for scanning coupons. The thrill is in the loopholes. If you buy 3 cans of beans and use this coupon with that rebate, you can actually make a profit. There's math, there's mystery, and there's always a little mischief. The mail-in rebate is your secret weapon. While others toss the forms you collect, collate, and send away with military precision. You have a filing system just for UPC codes and a calendar with mail rebate for new mophead marked in red. Weeks later, a check for 75 cents arrives, tucked inside a bland envelope that looks like junk mail. You tuck your winnings into the coffee tin with the reverence usually reserved for birthday cards from Grandma. Of course, there are hazards. One misplaced coupon can topple an entire grocery run. You felt the cold sweat of handing over an expired offer, the judgmental glance from a cashier who suspects you're gaming the system. Your spouse, blissfully unaware, wonders why you need 3 bottles of grape jelly and a year's supply of dental floss. You just smile, hand him a stack of free with purchase crackers, and tuck another $1 into your secret stash. There's competition too. Rival couponers lurk in the cereal aisle, eyeing your binder with envy. You nod, acknowledge the unspoken rules, and carry on, always 2 steps ahead, always ready with a rain check or a backup deal if the store runs out of sale milk. Sometimes the battle gets fierce. The great toilet paper shortage of '57 still haunts you, but it taught you never to underestimate a determined woman with a pair of scissors. When the day is done, you review your receipts, tally up your rebates, and add your savings to the cookie jar marked vacation fund. You're not just clipping for kicks, you're running a small financial empire, 1 coupon, 1 trade, 1 stealthy rebate at a time. And as you close your binder, you can't help but smile. In a world where every penny counts, you're the queen of the cut, reigning quietly and efficiently from your linoleum throne. Sure, you're the president, but behind the scenes, you're orchestrating bake sales, fun runs, and the occasional raffle with enough cash flow to rival a Vegas casino, minus the plausible deniability. PTA meetings aren't just gatherings. They're the weekly convening of your personal conciliere squad. The secretary, the treasurer, and that one mom who can strong-arm a local grocer into donating 20 pies. These are your capos. The cafeteria is your boardroom. The folding chair's your throne. You sit at the head of the table, gavel in hand, reviewing the week's business. Field trip budgets, fundraising targets, and who's skimming extra saran wrap for the cakewalk. You call the shots, keep the peace, and make sure nobody gets whacked with a dodgeball on your watch. It's not all snacks and spirit banners. Your real skill is running the PTA's many business ventures. The bake sale is less a community gathering and more a competitive marketplace, with carefully negotiated table space and a covert system for reserving the best location for your lemon bars. The pricing strategy is worthy of Wall Street. $0.25 for a cookie, 50 cents for a slice, and $1 for the good brownies, you know the ones. If a parent tries to undercut the price, you gently suggest they run the next 3 events themselves. They never do. You oversee every detail with the scrutiny of a tax auditor. Raffle tickets are sequentially numbered and cross-checked. The fun run route is plotted like a military campaign, and every cash box is guarded like Fort Knox. There's an elaborate system for handling loose change, with each volunteer sworn to secrecy about which desk drawer holds the emergency quarters. You know which teachers will forget to turn in receipts, and which kids' parents will try to pass off store-bought cupcakes as homemade. There are consequences, and they involve extra shifts at the next car wash. Then there's the favour economy. Want first dibs on the best parking spot at the carnival? Bring extra napkins and a strong back for setup. Need your name bumped to the top of the sign-up sheet for next year's committee? Well, maybe you could run point on the silent auction, just this once. The power isn't in the presidency, it's in the ledger book, the list of who owes what, and the whispered deals struck in the copy room while the principal isn't looking. Of course, you have to keep your hands clean, at least officially. When the fundraising totals are counted, you present them with a smile, modest about the fact that you negotiated a 30% discount from the balloon vendor, double the profits on the raffle, and accidentally scheduled the bake sale on payday. Any suspicions about how smoothly everything runs are quickly deflected with jokes about just being organised. But you know it's more than that. It's a delicate dance of alliances, gentle threats, and the occasional sternly worded memo sent home in a manila envelope. There are risks, misplaced raffle tickets, a rogue parent group trying to launch their own competing bake sale, and the ever-present threat of the principal deciding the funds should go to new gym mats instead of the library's reading nook. But you navigate it all with grace, charm, and the iron will of a union boss in pearls. Your greatest weapon? The phone tree, one whispered rumour, and the entire parent network can mobilise faster than the town's volunteer fire department. At the end of the year, when the books are balanced and the last cookie crumb is swept from the cafeteria floor, you take a moment to count the earnings stashed in the PTA's rainy day tin. It's not quite Vegas money, but it's enough to keep the lights on, the field trips funded, and your secret empire humming along. In the world of school fundraising, you're not just president, you're the godmother. And as everyone knows, nothing happens in this town without your blessing and a carefully counted stack of cupcake cash. A little chemistry, a lot of nerve, and you're refilling fancy bottles with drugstore knockoffs for friends who swear they can't tell the difference. Just don't let anyone see the mixing bowls in the garage. It all begins with a casual complaint at Bridge Club. Chanel No. 5 costs more than my electric bill. A neighbour sighs, waving a nearly empty glass bottle like a white flag. You nod sympathetically, but a plan is already forming. The next time someone asks how you managed to smell like a Parisian heiress on a school cafeteria budget, you just smile and say, "A lady never reveals her secrets. At least not for free." Your garage, usually reserved for garden tools and mysterious cans of paint, becomes your makeshift perfume lab. There's an old card table, a jumble of tiny funnels, and a rainbow of inspiration scents purchased from the local 5 and dime. A few mixing bowls, some cotton balls, and a handful of eyedroppers are all you need. You work after dark, the garage door cracked just enough to vent the fragrance clouds, listening for the telltale squeak of bicycle tyres or the dreaded footsteps of your own curious children. The process is part science, part art, and part high-stakes espionage. You carefully pour cheap cologne into empty fancy bottles, sometimes adding a drop or two of essential oil for the extra je ne sais quoi. A splash of rose here, a dash of vanilla there, maybe a little citrus to cut through the headache-inducing floral. You test each blend on a strip of old bedsheet, waft it through the air, and hope for alluring mystery instead of medicine cabinet disaster. The final product is a surprisingly convincing dupe, at least after an hour in a little air. Your first customers are skeptical. "Are you sure this smells like the real thing?" they ask, peering at the bottle, nose twitching. You offer a sample, watch as they dab it behind their ears, and wait. When the compliments start rolling in, you smell divine. Is that the new Estee Lauder? You know you've nailed it. Word spreads faster than perfume on a wool scarf. Soon you're running a low-key business, refilling bottles for every woman on the block who can keep a secret. Your code: drop off on Tuesday, pick up Thursday. Payment in cash, cake, or a fresh coupon for double stamps. Of course, discretion is key. The mixing bowls are hidden in a battered hat box, the eyedroppers in an empty coffee tin, and you always clean up before the family comes looking for the bicycle pump. You invent stories for why the garage smells like a department store, and why there are suddenly so many art projects requiring glass jars. Sometimes you even throw in a complimentary sachet, just to keep the rumours at bay. There are hazards, naturally. One slip of the hand and you're dealing with a cloud of lilac so intense it could knock over a grown man. Sometimes the blends go sideways, resulting in an accidental recreation of eau de mop water. But for every mishap there's a triumph, a perfectly matched Paris Nights or a knockoff so convincing you have to stop your own husband from borrowing it as aftershave. The best part? You stash your earnings in a little envelope, tucked inside an old sewing pattern, marked "for a rainy day in Paris." Your customers are loyal, your family is blissfully unaware, and your secret lab remains undiscovered so far. For a little while, you've turned bargains, scents, and empty bottles into a clandestine business, a tiny rebellion with each whiff of jasmine and vanilla. So the next time someone compliments your fragrance, you just smile and shrug. You know the truth. Behind every elegant spritz is a woman with a steady hand, a flair for chemistry, and a side hustle too clever for even Estee Lauder to sniff out. You dress up, act polite, and get paid in cash and coupons just to wander around judging stores. The 1950s version of online reviews, except with more hairspray and fewer trolls. It all starts with a classified ad in the local paper. Wanted. Reliable woman, keen eye for detail, willing to shop for a fee. Confidentiality required. You circle it in red, the possibilities swirling in your mind. A little spending money just to browse? You're in. You put on your best gloves, smooth down your skirt, and practice your most nonchalant "I'm just a regular customer" face in the mirror. In this business, blending in is half the job. Your secret shopper assignment is slipped to you in a plain envelope, with instructions so precise you'd think you were being sent to steal state secrets. Visit counter at 2 p.m. Order chocolate malt. Observe cleanliness. Assess friendliness of soda jerk. Your heart pounds with excitement and a hint of absurdity. The whole thing feels like being a spy. If spies were evaluating the freshness of apple fritters and the promptness of service at the 5 and dime, you take your role seriously. The first rule of secret shopping: never break character. You glide into the store, surveying displays with the cool detachment of royalty. You make small talk with the clerk, ask questions about wool socks and how many ounces fit in a milk bottle, and discreetly note whether the cashier offers you a receipt or just a distracted wave. You jot down observations in your pocket notebook, written in code just in case a manager gets nosy. SM equals smile minimal, FR equals fudge respectable, BM equals bathroom mirror clean, miracle. Your tasks can be anything from checking if the price tags are aligned at the hardware store to rating the enthusiasm of the lady at the perfume counter. Sometimes you get lucky and sample pastries at the bakery. Other times you buy a comb and spend 5 minutes sniffing the air for hints of bleach. The job is full of little perks, free candy, a coupon for $1 off your next purchase, a crisp bill tucked inside your report envelope. You're a professional critic, a one-woman consumer watchdog, the quiet hand-nudging stores to raise their game. The best part is the power. You, an ordinary housewife, are secretly steering the customer service standards of the whole town. You spot slacking clerks, sticky soda counters, or a rogue hair in the glass display case and know that, with a single check mark on your form, you could trigger a week of emergency cleaning sprees. It's like being a benevolent judge, rewarding the diligent and scaring the lazy straight. Of course, there are challenges. You must resist the urge to tell your friends which stores are about to be inspected. You invent stories for why you keep so many odd receipts, or why you suddenly care so much about how long it takes for someone to say, "May I help you?" There's the constant risk of being recognized, so you rotate hats and always buy a small something, even if it's just a spool of thread or a pack of chewing gum. Sometimes you get caught up in the moment. You're so busy rating the shine on the floor that you almost walk out with a magazine tucked under your arm, unpaid. Or you ask one too many questions and the sales clerk eyes you like you might be with the IRS. You smooth it over with a smile and a quick purchase, your dignity mostly intact. By the end of the week, you tally your bonuses, cash your coupon winnings, and tuck your extra earnings into your secret stash under the flour bin. You smile to yourself, knowing you've wielded the ultimate power of suburban judgment, polite, invisible, and always a little more influential than anyone suspects. In the world of secret shopping, you're not just browsing. You're quietly making the world a little tidier, a little friendlier, and a lot more interesting, one mystery malt at a time. You hand out mimeographed recipe booklets at Bridge Club, collecting coins in your cookie jar. Each recipe is a little piece of forbidden knowledge, passed down like a secret handshake. The world of mid-century cooking is full of secrets, but you are the gatekeeper. The mimeograph machine in the school office has never seen such late-night action. Under the cover of PTA minutes and bake sale flyers, you slip in your real work, a clandestine collection of the town's most coveted recipes. Your booklet, simply titled Neighbourhood Favourites, is the most whispered about document this side of the county records. To get your hands on a copy, you need two things: a little bit of cash and a willingness to keep your mouth shut. It started when you realised there was a quiet demand for the real version of Mrs. Hanley's chocolate pound cake, the one she brings to every church function and pretends is just something I whipped up. The Bridge Club was your first market, a subtle offer. If you like that peach cobbler, I might have a little book you'd enjoy, and suddenly every woman in the room is pressing coins into your hand between hands of gin rummy, eyes bright with excitement and a bit of guilt. Sales flourish in secret. You take orders written on the backs of grocery lists and folded napkins, collecting crumpled bills and sometimes the occasional trade, fresh bread, a jar of homemade preserves, or the promise of a week's worth of babysitting. The booklets themselves are stashed in a false-bottom cake tin, because heaven forbid a husband or a nosy teenager discovers the supply and ruins the whole enterprise. You distribute copies under the table, in the backs of station wagons, or even at the dry cleaners disguised inside a woman's magazine. Inside each booklet the recipes are coded. No plain potato salad here, but potato number 7, Edna's secret method, or chicken supreme, do not share with Betty. Some pages even have handwritten notes. Add nutmeg for the church social, or, in a particularly mysterious case, never use aluminum pan. Each recipe carries a story, a rivalry, a promise of domestic glory. If your dish wins the blue ribbon, everyone knows it's thanks to the black market cookbook. You become a legend in whispers. She's got the real lemon square recipe. I heard she paid for it in homemade jam and 2 afternoons of ironing. Of course, you must be careful. The cookbook mafia, the other women selling rival collections, watch your every move. There's a truce of sorts, but skirmishes happen. You spot your signature fudge recipe, slightly altered, in Mrs. Parker's Family Treasures edition. You both smile politely at the supermarket, but the silent war continues. Every new edition must have something special: jellied salads, mayonnaise cakes, that elusive no-bake pie, just enough to keep your buyers loyal and the coins flowing. Risks abound. If a husband finds out, there might be questions about why bingo money seems to multiply around bake sale season. If the PTA president discovers the operation, she might try to commandeer your recipe empire for the annual fundraiser. You play it cool, always with a spare copy for emergencies, and a secret code to know who's trustworthy. By year's end, your cookie jar rattles with earnings, and you've built more than a business. You've created a network of hungry, hopeful cooks, all bound by the promise of a better potluck. As you tuck another handwritten order into your apron pocket, you can't help but smile. This isn't just about sugar, spice and mimeograph ink. It's about freedom, friendship and the thrill of a well-timed scoop of secret knowledge, one recipe at a time. You can't play Chopin, but you can teach chopsticks. Kids rotate through your living room every afternoon, parents hand over bills, and your own children develop a suspicious love of earplugs. It all begins with a single, hopeful neighbour. "Would you mind giving Billy a lesson or two?" she asks, eyes shining with dreams of classical concerts and family Christmas sing-alongs. You glance at your upright piano, mostly used as a mail sorter and cat perch, and think, how hard can it be? You played a little in high school, enough to plunk out Twinkle, Twinkle, and, more importantly, enough to know you're exactly one step ahead of your students. Word spreads like spilled sheet music. Soon your doorbell rings every afternoon at 3, and your living room transforms into a waiting room. One child sits anxiously on the couch, a dog-eared John Thompson book on their lap. Another stares at the goldfish, silently pleading for rescue. A third proudly announces that they practiced at least twice, which you'll later discover means they mash the keys with sticky hands while watching cartoons. Your teaching method is simple: patience, praise, and a liberal use of jelly bean bribes. Everyone starts with chopsticks. not because it's educational, but because it gives you time to remember where middle C is. Scales, basic chords, and a rotating cast of nursery rhymes fill the rest of the lesson, interrupted only by the occasional shriek from your own children, who have learned, through necessity, to hide in the closet during lesson hours. The real business is in the rhythm. Kids come and go on a schedule tighter than the PTA calendar. Each lesson is 10 minutes longer than it needs to be, but you make up for it with enthusiasm and the promise that next week you'll learn something really fun. Parents arrive to pick up their musical prodigies, slipping you payment, crumpled bills, exact change, sometimes a coupon for the butcher. You tuck it all into a velvet-lined jewellery box hidden behind the music books, right next to your dignity and the secret hope that someday someone will actually master Für Elise. Of course, you aren't fooling anyone. Your own kids groan at the sound of heart and soul echoing through the halls, stuffing cotton balls in their ears and trading jokes about the musical torture chamber with the neighbour kids. The cat has learned to flee at the first sight of a metronome. You develop an unflappable sense of humour about missed notes, creative improvisation. Is that supposed to be Yankee Doodle? And the occasional meltdown when someone forgets which finger is which. There are hazards, naturally. A broken key from an over-enthusiastic rendition of Mary Had a Little Lamb. A parent who asks if you can prepare their child for a piano exam you barely remember exists. The rare but terrifying moment when a mother insists on sitting in to observe the lesson, forcing you to improvise a lecture on the emotional benefits of rhythm clapping. But there's triumph too. You see progress, however incremental, and you celebrate it. A child who plays their first song from memory. A nervous student who finally finds the courage to play in front of the group at the school recital. You witness friendships form between students, little alliances and rivalries that turn piano lessons into the neighbourhood's best-kept after-school secret. At the end of each week, you count your earnings, close the piano lid and pour yourself a cup of tea. You may never make it to Carnegie Hall, but your empire is real. A growing business built on encouragement, jelly beans, and the enduring appeal of chopsticks. In a world full of rules and regulations, you've made your own music, one off-key note at a time. The kitchen smells like lavender and lye, and your hands are permanently pruny. You're running a soap business so quietly that even your husband thinks the endless parade of weirdly shaped bars is just a phase. Soap making is supposed to be a quaint hobby, but you've weaponized it into a cottage industry. Your operation begins at dawn, when the rest of the house is still dreaming and you're sneaking out of bed to measure out lye, coconut oil, and that one bottle of special occasion vanilla you hide from the kids. The kitchen becomes a mad scientist's laboratory, mixing bowls, glass thermometers, and a half-dozen wooden moulds scattered across every flat surface. The neighbours think you're baking. If only they knew that, instead of cookies, you're whipping up enough glycerin to supply half the zip code. Your secret weapon is creativity. You blend in lavender buds, oatmeal, coffee grounds, even orange zest pilfered from the fruit bowl. Each batch is a test. Will this one turn out silky, or will it seize up like cement? You've had your share of disasters. One batch went so wrong, it's now a permanent fixture under the porch, protecting the house from squirrels. But most of the time your efforts yield glorious, fragrant bars, swirled, marbled, stamped, and sliced with the precision of a pastry chef and the pride of a small-time smuggler. Distribution is an art form all its own. You wrap your creations in wax paper or recycled fabric scraps, tie them with twine, and label them with names like Morning Meadow and Grit and Grace. Every week, you slip a few bars into purses at Bridge Club, leave thank you gifts in mailboxes, and sell the rest out of a decorative basket at the church bazaar. Your best customers are the ones who swear they'll never buy store soap again after trying your honey almond scrub. Payment is always low-key. $1 slipped into your apron, a jar of homemade pickles, a secret coupon for free shoe repair from Mrs. Baxter's husband. Of course, there are risks. You've had to explain to the kids, more than once, why they're not allowed to touch the danger bowl in the sink. The dog has learned to steer clear of the kitchen whenever you start hauling out essential oils. And your husband, He's given up asking why the cutlery drawer smells like peppermint, or why his favourite mug is now a mould for lemon thyme soap. You just assure him it's all part of the process, and hope he never does the math on your suddenly growing stash of cash hidden in the flour tin. The hazards aren't just domestic either. There's the time a batch overflowed the mould and cemented itself to the counter, the trial run of apple pie spice soap that turned every towel orange for a week. You've learned to keep vinegar handy for chemical emergencies, and you now wear gloves like a seasoned professional. Through trial, error, and a little luck, you've mastered the soap-making hustle and maybe, just maybe, the art of keeping it all a secret. But when you step back, survey your wares, and count the week's take, you feel something bigger than profit. You feel independent, resourceful, and quietly victorious. Your hands may be pruny, your kitchen may look like a post-war disaster, but you've built something real, a business built on bubbles, bartering, and bravado. So when someone compliments your skin, or asks what that delightful scent is, you just smile and offer them a sample. They never suspect the real truth. Behind every fragrant bar is a woman who's mastered chemistry, commerce, and the fine art of turning just a phase into a tidy soapy sum of her own. Every holiday, you buy up discount cards, embellish them with glue and gold, and resell them for a markup. By December, you're both the post office's favourite customer and the only person you know who gets Christmas cards in July. It starts with a clearance bin and a vision. You spot a box of last season's cards marked down to pennies, and the scheme takes shape in your mind. Part magpie, part entrepreneur, part suburban Robin Hood. You scoop up every bent, glitter-dusted reject, already plotting their grand transformation. Your kitchen table turns into a glitter zone, scissors, glue, and spools of ribbon everywhere, a fine shimmer settling on every surface. You can measure your success in sparkles. The more you cough, the better the batch. The real trick isn't just in decoration, but in disguise. No one wants the same old Happy Holidays penguin they saw last year, so you take your craft knife to the cards like a safe cracker. You trim, snip, and layer, adding shiny borders and clever embellishments, sequins, pressed flowers, hand-drawn snowflakes. Some cards are so thoroughly remade, not even the original printer would recognise them. You add a little golden flourish here, a personal message there, and suddenly that 10-cent afterthought is a bespoke seasonal greeting, limited edition by you. Your clientele is vast and ever hungry for novelty. The PTA mums who forgot to buy cards again are your best customers, ready to pay a premium for something handmade. You sell at bake sales, church bazaars, and for the truly desperate and clandestine trades at the playground. You didn't get this from me, you whisper, slipping a packet of glammed-up cards into a paper bag. In return, you receive crisp bills, home-baked cookies, and once an entire ham. You stash the cash in a biscuit tin labelled spare buttons and squirrel away the ham for emergencies. Of course, by autumn, the post office staff know you by name. You breeze in with an avalanche of stamped envelopes, waving to the clerks who never ask why your Christmas cards are addressed in July or your Valentine's greetings are mailed in October. You're running a year-round operation, Mother's Day, Easter, Arbor Day. If there's a reason to send a card, you're there first, ahead of the market. People wonder how you always seem so prepared. They never see the stack of discount cards waiting in your closet for their seasonal moment to shine. Your family's bewildered. The kitchen smells faintly of glue sticks and last year's pine. Your kids are instructed to keep the good scissors out of the jam, and your husband, eyeing the growing collection of greeting card boxes in the hall closet, makes occasional jokes about you becoming a stationery tycoon. You just smile and hand him a thank you card. Pre-signed, of course. There are hazards in the business. A sudden rainstorm once ruined an entire batch, and you spent a frantic evening with a hairdryer and a prayer. You've cut your thumb more times than you can count and lived in dread of running out of gold pen ink at the peak of the season. You keep backup supplies in the car, the pantry, and occasionally under your pillow, just in case inspiration or demand strikes at midnight. But there's real joy in it too. Each card is a little work of art, a secret bit of seasonal cheer, a clever twist on thrift and creativity. At the end of each season, as you count your profits and brush the last stray bits of glitter from your sleeves, you realise you're not just making cards. You're spreading celebration and padding your own holiday fund with nothing but your wits, a hot glue gun, and the irresistible power of a good buyback heist. So next time someone marvels at your handmade card, you just give a wink and offer to take their order for next year. After all, in the world of suburban hustle, every season is the perfect season for a little creative mischief. Every so often, a neighbour appears at your back door clutching a pair of hideous floral drapes. You nod knowingly. In a flurry of pins and perfectly straight seams, you transform curtains while pretending to borrow your own sewing machine for the afternoon. The best part? You're paid in small bills and homemade fudge, both stashed in your emergency cookie tin. Curtain hemming is not for the faint of heart. It takes the patience of a saint, the dexterity of a surgeon, and the stomach to face fabrics that look like they were designed by someone with a grudge against colour harmony. Yet, in a world where store-bought curtains come only in almost right lengths, and the only thing longer than the drapes are the stories that come with them, you've carved out your own quiet empire, one hem at a time. Your living room becomes a makeshift tailor shop. You shoo the cat off the ironing board and clear space on the dining table, rolling out 6 feet of swirling faded polyester. The neighbour, whose face is pinched with both hope and embarrassment, explains that they were on sale and no one will notice the pattern, right? You smile reassuringly and snap open your pin tin, ready to work your magic. With a tape measure around your neck and a mouthful of straight pins, you plot your attack. First, you iron. Then you measure, fold, pin, and fold again. The goal is perfection, a hem so even that Martha Stewart would weep. The fabric often fights back. It frays, it puckers, it slips and slides under the foot of your old singer. Still, you persist, coaxing order from chaos with each steady stitch. Occasionally you have to pause to explain to your family why the vacuum is filled with threads, or why the bathroom towel rack is draped in yards of drying curtain. As the machine hums and the kitchen fills with the soft swish of fabric, you slip into your secret rhythm. Every so often, you glance out the window to check for more clients, curtain conspirators who don't want their husbands to know how much they paid to fix last year's impulse buy window coverings. You keep the operation discreet, just borrowing the sewing machine, you'll say to anyone who asks, though your borrowing has started to resemble a long-term lease. Payment is never formal. Sometimes it's cash in an envelope pressed into your hand with a grateful whisper. Sometimes it's fudge, a batch of cinnamon rolls, or a coupon for 2 hours of babysitting. Your emergency cookie tin, once reserved for tornado drills, is now the home of your earnings, a testament to both your skills and your neighbours' collective desperation to avoid public curtain shame. Of course, there are hazards. Once you hemmed a curtain upside down and had to unpick 3 yards of invisible thread, while the dog howled at the indignity of having his nap spot disturbed. The iron once left a modern art impression in a spot that you quickly declared part of the new look. You've learned to keep extra thread and a sense of humour handy at all times. But at the end of the day, when you deliver the newly hemmed curtains, now a few inches shorter, a lot less frayed, and as close to straight as anyone can get without a laser level, you see the relief on your neighbour's face. You collect your fudge, your cash, and your whispered thanks. You hang up your tape measure, tuck away the pins, and add your earnings to the emergency stash. You might not get public praise, but you do get a house full of good smells, a steady flow of side income, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're the reason half the block's living rooms look as polished as a magazine spread, at least from the knees down. In the world of covert curtain hemming, you're the unsung hero, stitching together community, competence, and the best fudge in town. You aren't just trading knickknacks, you're running a highly organised barter empire out of your driveway every Saturday morning. One vintage casserole dish swapped for a basket of apples, and a little cash slips quietly from hand to hand. If husbands ask, you're just making room. If wives ask, You're the neighbourhood's best-kept secret for finding a missing Pyrex lid. It all begins at dawn, when the world is quiet and you're already setting up folding tables under the mailbox. Each table is draped in a patchwork quilt, a subtle nod to your organised but homey vibe and loaded with treasures, mismatched teacups, crocheted pot holders, battered board games, and an ever-rotating selection of Tupperware that seems to multiply in the night. You've learned to spot the treasures in other people's cast-offs, turning junk into gold with the flick of a dust rag and a practice sales pitch. The early birds are your regulars, coffee mugs in hand, eyes bright with hope and caffeine. They bring their offerings, a jar of homemade jelly, a bag of homegrown tomatoes, a stack of mystery novels. The negotiations are subtle, sometimes silent. A quick glance, a nod, a murmured, "I'll throw in 2 zucchini if you toss in the blue Pyrex." You nod sagely, make the trade, and record the mental tally of who owes what and who's a sucker for fiestaware. The best deals are done out of sight. You keep a little tin under the table for the cash transactions, the secret currency that oils the gears of suburban bartering. No one admits to buying or selling. Officially, everything is a trade. But somehow, a dollar bill here and there slips between stacks of linens or vanishes into the front pocket of your housecoat. The husbands wander by, vaguely suspicious, and you greet them with a sunny, "just decluttering, dear." Meanwhile, the wives know to check the hidden bin behind the garden hose for the real goods. Matching lids, cake stands, and once, a set of silver teaspoons exchanged for a homemade lasagna. Your swap meet empire isn't just about stuff. It's about secrets, connections, and the unspoken rules of driveway commerce. Need to know who's got extra jam jars? Ask you. Need a costume for the school play? You've got 3 in the trunk and a stash of feather bows. Your operation runs on goodwill, gossip, and the sheer joy of the hunt. The local kids show up too, hoping to trade comic books for bubblegum, or just to gawk at the oddities you've gathered. Is this a butter churn or a spaceship part? Of course, there are hazards. One week, a sudden rainstorm has everyone scrambling, your tables draped in plastic and your shoes soaked through. Another time misses. Green's prized bunt pan mysteriously disappears, and a minor scandal brews until it's returned with a sheepish apology and a tin of brownies as a peace offering. You've learned to keep your best finds hidden until the right trader comes along, and to never, ever underestimate the value of a well-seasoned cast-iron skillet. By noon, the crowd thins and you survey your domain. Some treasures have found new homes, some mysteries remain unsolved. Who keeps leaving the salt shakers? And your emergency cookie tin is a little heavier with folded bills and handwritten "I owe us." You sweep up the glitter, fold the quilts, and stash the unsold items for next week's market, because there's always next week. Always another deal to strike. Always another neighbour with a basement full of decluttering opportunities. When the day is done, you relax with a glass of iced tea, a sense of accomplishment, and maybe, just maybe, a slightly fuller kitchen cabinet than you had that morning. In the world of sneaky swap meet mavens, you're not just making room, you're making community, one trade and one knowing wink at a time. Moth holes are no match for you. Armed with darning needles, thread, and an iron will, you restore sweaters to their former glory. The women in your block bring their worst winter casualties. You perform delicate surgery, and a crisp dollar bill appears in your apron pocket for every rescue. The business begins in the back closet, in a cedar-scented corner where you keep your secret arsenal. A rainbow of fine threads, a pin cushion shaped like a tomato, and the darning egg that once belonged to your grandmother. It started small, patching an elbow here, a wrist there, maybe sewing a lost button. But word spread faster than moths at a woolen convention. Now, your living room sees a parade of the neighbourhood's most tragic cashmere disasters. Chewed cuffs, mysterious nibbled patches, and the occasional "I didn't even know you could get a hole there." You run consultations with the precision of a seasoned tailor and the compassion of a field medic. Each sweater is greeted with a gentle sigh, a careful inspection under the best lamp in the house, and an honest assessment. "Oh, this one's not so bad. I've seen worse." You sort them by severity, minor casualties on one side, near hopeless cases on the other. You might lose the cuff, but you'll keep the arm. You reassure your clients, who clutch their tattered knits like beloved family pets. The work is meticulous. You match threads as closely as a forger matches ink, sometimes unravelling a bit from a hidden seam to get the colour just right. You squint, you stitch, you murmur encouragement to yourself as the pattern emerges. It's quiet work requiring focus and patience, but there's a zen to it, a slow, meditative rhythm broken only by the occasional needle prick or the sound of the cat batting at a loose ball of yarn. Sometimes a client offers to sit with you, and you sip tea together, sharing stories about the winters when those sweaters were first worn. He bought it for me on our honeymoon, or I wore this to the hospital when Sally was born. Of course, not every sweater survives unscathed. There are times when your surgical efforts leave a faint scar, or when a patch is required. A discreet little heart over the elbow, a flower where disaster once struck. These become features, not flaws, badges of resilience in the ongoing war against moths. Your customers understand. The world, after all, is full of holes, and some are best covered with a little creativity and a lot of stubbornness. Payment is always quiet, always discreet. A dollar bill slipped into your apron, a thank you note folded around a homemade cookie, sometimes a bundle of carrots from someone's backyard garden. You add each bill to your wool fund, a little envelope hidden behind the tea bags, destined for your own someday splurge on a sweater so soft it's almost criminal. Occasionally, a customer brings you a hopeless case, a sweater so far gone it's fit only for the rag bin. You salvage what you can, saving scraps for patches and imagining a future where nothing is ever truly wasted. The hazards are real. You've sewn your thumb to a cuff more than once, tangled your hair in the darning egg, and endured the agony of spilling coffee on a freshly cleaned white sweater. But each victory, no matter how small, is a celebration. You restore colour and warmth to the neighbourhood one stitch at a time, building quiet connections and collecting whispered gratitude in the form of dollar bills and the occasional slice of homemade pie. At the end of a busy week, you look over your work, sweaters lined up like soldiers, ready for another winter, and feel a wave of pride. You've resurrected not just clothing, but memories, confidence, and a little bit of joy. In the world of the Cashmere Sweater Rejuvenation Society, you're more than a fixer of holes. You're a restorer of hope, one invisible stitch at a time. Forget the kids. This is a grown woman's business. You mix up secret recipe lemonade with a suspiciously adult twist, set up shop at PTA events, and watch as parents line up for a taste of something they can't get at the supermarket. All proceeds go straight into the lining of your purse, and the neighbourhood gossips can't decide if you're a genius or a menace. It all started innocently enough. The PTA needed refreshments for the spring carnival, and you offered to take care of the lemonade. What followed was the most lucrative accident in your suburban career. Armed with nothing but a sack of lemons, a questionable bottle of cooking sherry, and a knack for mixing drinks, you whipped up a batch that left the adults in the bounce house giggling and the chaperones a little too enthusiastic about volunteering. Before long, the word was out. Your lemonade had a kick, and not just from the citrus. You perfected your recipe in the privacy of your kitchen. There were trial batches, too sweet, experimental flavours, cucumber mint, a flop, and a few missteps involving ginger that still haunt the memory of anyone who attended the full bake sale. But once you hit the right balance, bright, tart, with just enough bite to remind you that adulthood has its perks, you knew you were onto something. The lemonade stand became your side gig, operating with the efficiency and secrecy of a speakeasy. The first rule, no kids allowed behind the counter. The setup is simple, but flawless. You arrive early, arrange your supplies with military precision, and affix a hand-lettered sign to the table. There's a decoy picture of the classic recipe up front, and under the table, the real star, a chilled jug of house blend. Adults approach casually, muttering code words. "I'll take the special, please," and you serve up paper cups of sunshine while the PTA president pretends not to notice. The profits pile up fast. Parents slip you cash, sometimes tips, sometimes a "owe us" hastily scribbled on napkins, all tucked into a hidden zipper pocket in your purse, right next to your emergency lipstick and backup corkscrew. Competition is fierce, but no one dares challenge your reign. Other mums bring cookies, brownies, the occasional Rice Krispie treat, but the real draw is always your booth. A few have tried to replicate your success, mixing up batches of bland supermarket lemonade, but they can't match your signature blend or your velvet rope sense of exclusivity. Rumour has it the men on the school board have been known to volunteer for clean-up just to snag a second glass. Of course, running a grown-up lemonade syndicate comes with hazards. There's the constant threat of exposure, one nosy teacher sniffing out your secret ingredient, one overzealous principal just checking on refreshments. You've perfected your poker face, feigning surprise if anyone asks about the special tang, always ready with a sample of the PG-rated picture as cover. You keep the real stuff stashed behind a stack of napkins or, on risky days, hidden in the trunk of your car with the windows cracked. The gossip, meanwhile, is almost as sweet as the lemonade itself. Some call you a genius, others whisper about your influence on the committee. You take it all in stride, smiling serenely, pouring another cup, and quietly counting the proceeds. By the end of the event, your purse is satisfyingly heavy, and you've made enough to cover groceries, a new lipstick, and a rainy day splurge for yourself. As you pack up, you hand out a few free samples to the teachers who work so hard, and wave cheerfully to the parents with telltale grins and pink-tinged cheeks. You wipe down the table, tuck your earnings into their secret pocket, and head home. In a world that expects lemonade stands to be run by children, you've rewritten the rules. The illicit lemonade stand syndicate is yours, and you're raising the bar, one citrusy grown-up pour at a time. Under cover of darkness, you deliver stacks of borrowed magazines from house to house, trading copies of Good Housekeeping for news about whose husband got a raise. Payment is always discreet, cash tucked into envelopes, sometimes a slice of cake left on the porch. In the morning, the street is silent, but every mailbox has a fresh magazine, and you, somehow, are a little bit richer. It starts with a stack of back issues piling up in your living room. You try to keep things tidy, maybe even return a few magazines to the library on time, but it's impossible. There's always another copy of Ladies' Home Journal, with a casserole recipe you haven't tried, or a copy of McCall's that's too good to throw away. Soon, friends and neighbours start dropping off their own old issues. Just in case you want a peek, they say. But you know the real reason. Magazine clutter is everyone's guilty secret. You have an idea one night as you're straightening up after dinner, eyeing the growing tower of glossy covers. Why not redistribute the wealth? So you become the neighbourhood's answer to the Pony Express, slipping out after dark with a canvas tote, a flashlight, and the agility of a cat burglar. The mission? Bring reading material and news straight to your neighbours' mailboxes while everyone else is busy pretending they're asleep. The route is well rehearsed. You tiptoe down driveways, shoes soft on the dew-wet grass, scanning the shadows for the telltale glint of a porch light flickering on. You become a master of stealth, dodging sprinklers, sidestepping the occasional curious raccoon, and learning which mailboxes creak and which swing open silently. For the especially prized issues, you slip in a friendly note. Enjoy, your midnight librarian. Over time, your reputation grows. Housewives whisper about the mysterious benefactor who always seems to know exactly when a new diet miracle article is needed, or when the latest celebrity scandal will hit just right. Payment comes in all shapes and sizes. Some households slip envelopes with a few coins or a dollar bill into the stack of magazines returned for recycling. Others leave baked goods as tokens of appreciation. Bundt cake, cinnamon rolls, and once, a suspiciously large fruitcake wrapped in wax paper. The transactions are always hush-hush. Nobody talks about it, but everyone knows to check their porch for a treat after a particularly juicy magazine drop. You keep the cash in a jar hidden behind the gardening gloves and the cake. Well, the cake is just a perk of the job. It's not just about the magazines. You become a central node in the neighbourhood's information network. A new raise in the Henderson house. You hear about it first, trading a Better Homes and Gardens for an update on who's planning a kitchen remodel or who just adopted a new puppy. With every delivery, you collect a bit of gossip, a scrap of news, or a whispered tip about next month's school fundraiser. Sometimes you add your own cryptic messages. Try the peach cobbler on page 34 and wait for someone to mention it at bridge club. Of course, there are hazards. One evening, you nearly get caught when Mrs. Campbell's dog decides it's finally going to catch the magazine bandit. You make it over the picket fence with your dignity mostly intact, but you leave a trail of red book covers in your wake. Another time, the wind nearly carries your entire stash into the Johnsons' koi pond, requiring a midnight rescue mission armed with a fishing net and a lot of whispered prayers. But most nights things go off without a hitch. The neighbourhood wakes to fresh reading material, a little extra news, and the comfort of knowing someone out there is keeping tabs and keeping things interesting. As you return home in the early dawn, you count your modest earnings and savour a bite of midnight cake, quietly proud of your role as the mysterious benevolent force behind the street's best reading and juiciest news. In a world where everyone wants to know a little more and get their hands on the latest Good Housekeeping without paying full price, you're the midnight magazine maven spreading stories, sweets, and a little bit of secret joy, one mailbox at a time. So tonight, as you tuck yourself into bed, maybe with clean sheets, a lamp you didn't have to rewire yourself, and the comforting knowledge that your bank account is your own, take a moment to appreciate just how far we've come. The 1950s, housewife faced a world where budgets were tight, dreams were even tighter, and every extra dime was a tiny act of rebellion. For every cake baked, every curtain hemmed, every jar of jam sold in secret, there's a story of resourcefulness, resistance, and a little bit of mischief. Maybe you had to hide your hustle in a flour canister, or stuff your cash in a coffee tin behind the cream of mushroom soup, just to have a sliver of independence. Maybe you spent your days balancing the PTA, the casserole, the 3 kids with chicken pox, and still managed to teach a neighbour's dog how to sit for a nickel. It wasn't easy, but you found a way, one coupon, one egg, one crocheted Afghan at a time. So as you lie there tonight, listening to the soft hum of your fan, or maybe the quiet beeping of a phone you don't have to share, give a quiet thank you to those women who turned everyday chores into a lifeline, who hustled, who hoped, who hid a $5 bill away just in case. Because history, for all its strangeness and struggle, is really a story of stubborn, creative people making the best of what they've got, even if what they've got is a basement full of Tupperware and a dream that someday, somehow, they'd have a little money of their own. So breathe easy, knowing you don't have to sell Avon door to door, or slip out after dark to deliver magazines unless you want to. The world may be ridiculous, but people are endlessly hopeful, quietly clever, and more resilient than any girdle. Sleep well, and remember, the secret to survival in any era is a little bit of laughter, a pinch of rebellion, and the comfort of knowing you're not alone. Good night.